Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
All right, we've made it through another week, have we? Well, some people have. Let's be honest about it. I am fine. Dan Schaefer, the host of the co-host of Palatini and Tuesdays with Josie, available wherever you podcast your podcasts. I came in and I asked him how he was doing. He said good, and I said I'm fine. That's the best I can do, Dan. Let me get your microphone. Yeah, there we go.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Everything's fine. We're fine.
Well, I just saw my neighbor. He was out walking his beautiful dog. I think it's a boxer, maybe, or I think he's a pitty. But I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "Good, really good." And he said, "How about you?" And I was like, "No, I mean, like, I can't be honest about it."
It's kind of like. I was going to say I have 3 words. Just make it stop.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I know.
That's not going to happen.
But that's not an option, really.
I have so many things running through my head right now because I was listening to that conversation that Renato Mariotti was having with Joan Esposito. And, and then the news, I don't know if you heard on the news that I'm getting so many sources of information. Obviously, our news, which can be here or there. And then, do you follow Aaron Parnas? Aaron Parnas
I do not.
So Leo Parnas, who is in jail as one of the conspirators in Georgia, one of the electoral, one of those guys that was trying to get the fake electors and things like that. Yeah. So this kid was raised in an obviously very conservative household. He, was very conservative. He went to college at the age of 14, graduated at 18, went to law school at 18, graduated 21, and then I guess something happened in the last year or so. He was knee deep in all the conservative stuff. He clerked for conservative judges, and I haven't seen his origin story, but something snapped for him, and he has a lot of contacts, including conservatives who didn't want this to happen, giving him news leaks and stuff like that. It's the way I'm understanding it.
Yeah. So
he gets news very quickly and does a great job of just breaking it down. He doesn't have necessarily a slant. I mean, he'll say this is very good or this is very bad for Trump, for Musk, whoever. So he was reporting, one of the breaking stories was a judge has put a temporary restraining order on firing over 2,000 USAID employees. Yep. And it's temporary. It's a minor, temporary victory.
Till Monday, I believe.
Yeah. So, and this is possibly where, I'm grateful that we have some judges, including conservative judges, including some who were appointed by Ronald Reagan, of all things.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
Yep.
Getting in there and interpreting the law in a way that serves the people of the United States of America instead of billionaires and the powerful in D.C. And that is something that I'm hopeful for. And I assure you, I'll bet you there's a point where, because we talked to this guy did you hear our interview with Fix the Courts, our friend from Fix the Courts?
I did not.
So he comes at it from a very nonpartisan point of view. Okay. And, he would, from what I was gathering from him, I think that possibly Alito, Thomas, all that group have really convinced themselves that they are doing the right thing. I don't believe some of them. I don't know. Yeah. On some issues, I know that Thomas comes from and he has said it. He has said publicly, or at least to his staff, that his goal in life is to destroy the liberal, population, liberal, destroy our sort of path forward, our agenda. Because now I'm going to say we have an agenda. Why do they get to have an agenda? Why do they get to have a playbook?
Right. What? Yeah.
I remember when I was at WGN, this guy would call and accuse me of having a liberal agenda, and we would make jokes about it. I'd be like, has anyone seen my agenda? I can't find it. Looking at
where is our Project 2025? If they can have it, we can have it.
Well, we need our Heritage Foundation. We need our Federalist Society. Yeah. We need our Fox News. And MSNBC is not it.
No.
But we need those, because we talk a lot about the media, but the bigger issue has definitely been the Heritage. They just confirmed the Heritage Foundation guy to a position yesterday. Yeah.
Really? I didn't see that.
The architect of Project 2025, because they wouldn't allow arguments.
the Project 2025 that doesn't exist according to Donald Trump, right?
Oh,
So
No,
that's but the architect literally is now a approved cabinet member. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because it's kind of like, so what I've been experiencing, and it's why I say make it stop. It's kind of like, look over here, but don't look over here, right? Like we're gonna make you all go crazy. We're gonna shut down Department of Education. We're gonna USAID, but don't look at all the other stuff that we're actually doing behind the scenes. Yeah. It's and we're falling for it, and media is not doing.
The us falling for it, like there's nothing at this point. We did everything we could do. The us falling for it part is like what? I mean, like what? What is there to do?
I know, right? Midterms. I mean, that's what we've got to work.
If we make it to the midterms.
If we make it to the midterms, it's only been 2.5 weeks. I feel like it's been a year. I know. It's crazy. But I was getting to the point where I was like, it's too much and it's overwhelming, which it is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But I was talking to myself on the car ride over.
I do that. So I make it to the day, my friend.
That's what I was like.
Left foot, right foot. That's how I walk now.
Yeah. I was like, but you know what? It can never be too much, because then we kind of feel like, okay, I'm going to step back. But no, I'm not. I was like, so I told myself, I was like, we're not going to step back. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep working. Do you use your name?
Do you say Dan or do you say self?
I think I say self or other things that I can't say on the air.
Hey, you. Hey, you, snap out of it.
I sometimes call myself names that, again, the FCC license would not be. But but like, I don't want it to be the point where I'm overwhelmed to the point where I disengage, you know?
Sure.
Like, we need to be engaged, and we need to just keep moving forward, right?
Let's see. This was a text to Joan, so I think this kind of reflects on our conversation. From the 312 says, 2 distracted citizens and 2 overwhelmed journalists, really. What a weak excuse. Certain members of the media and our country are in denial about what white supremacy is and who is doing it. Journalists are never overwhelmed by facts. Citizens are not so distracted they forget that they cannot afford rent. Yeah, they cannot afford rent or buy groceries. And that's going to start happening. And in fact, you know, when they put that federal freeze, that blockade on programs and grants and things like that already gummed up the system for people who do live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And I have to work on an essay for Monday morning for Minocqua Brewing Company, and I'm struggling with it because part of me is that, you know, I was thinking about the 80s, and I was a kid, and I had an interview with a filmmaker the other day, and it's a film called Green and Gold. You can go to greenandgoldmovie.com to find out about it. But it's about a dairy farmer, and he's about to lose his farm. And this was a big topic in the 80s, Dan. It was Places in the Heart, The River. Like, there were all these movies about people who were about to lose their farms. Yeah. And I didn't put it together that it was because Ronald Reagan was destroying our farms, our family-owned farms that you now have Land O'Lakes. They're all corporate owned because Ronald Reagan decimated our ag. Yeah. Right,
and also the middle class. But
but what I'm saying, the middle class, and then under Bush, you had all these predatory lenders. You had all these people who were buying insurance on banking that people wouldn't be able to afford their mortgages. So then you further destroy the middle class and our ability to own farms, and then corporations and hedge fund investors come in and they buy all this property. Yep. And so this does seem like the end game, that we lose everything. It's owned by corporations, and in order to survive, we have to pay them to live on their lands.
As Tom Hartman has said multiple times, we are becoming Russia. The oligarchs are controlling things. Yeah. And one of my favorite things during George W. Bush's tenure, I will call it a tenure, is when a banking CEO was asked what a derivative is, and he had no idea what it was. Sure. Oh, okay, cool, all right.
What's that guy? The guy who says, is it Adam Ruins Everything? Is that the name of those? Yeah. So Adam, I can't remember his last name, but he was talking about, and we've mentioned this before, about billionaires do not earn $1 billion. They take $1 billion. There is no way the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, worked hard as his employees that are in the warehouses who have to get there at 5 a.m, who are working in buildings that are vulnerable to. There was a tornado in Illinois. They were not allowed to evacuate.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, like they don't work. I mean, like they don't work as hard as their hardest working employees, which was always something interesting to me with the model model for Costco. I don't know what it is now, and of course they are standing tall. They're doubling down on their
Costco.
policies. Yeah. And I've switched to Costco for as much as I possibly can. But there was a point where I believe the CEO would only earn 14 times as much as his top floor employee.
Yeah.
Right. And so we are at the point. I remember in Springfield, I talked to when they were trying to break the unions, and they were pointing to Indiana as an example. And I said, but in Indiana, the CEOs are earning over 300 times what their employees are earning. How is that? And I remember it was, I think it was Bartman was the name of the Republican legislator, and he said, Bartman sounds wrong. That's the Cubs kid, isn't it? Berrickman.
I was going to say sports.
He said, well, at least they have a job. And that is literally what the oligarchs are going to do. At least you are alive.
The owners of Walmart.
They want to bring us all to our knees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. It's all going according to their plan.
We started on a very positive note.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the future. But it does take, I think, pacing yourself. To your point about not wanting to stay engaged and informed, I'm trying to set my own pace.
Yes.
I think if you go back and listen to the shows this week, I sometimes come in fired up. But even seeing the despair in other people's faces is starting to get to me. The work that I do during the day is taking its toll. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what design I'm making with this piece of paper, but
are you going to throw a paper airplane at me, or what's happening?
It doesn't seem like it's going to be very aerodynamic. Let's take a break here and we'll figure it out. We're hanging out with Dan Schaefer, guest co-hosting today. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk to our friends from the Gift Theater. We also have our friends from FairVote. I think that's going to be an important conversation. I think that as long as we're allowed to keep having our voices heard, I do believe that FairVote, meaning ranked choice voting, is the path forward to saving our democracy. And by the way, for the morons who jump on my page and troll and we live in a constitutional republic, that's a form of democracy. You numbnuts. More in a moment on they're just so dumb. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
I'm thankful, really, that anyone could feel they could call into this show and share their real despair and anger. I am. I can only hope that we can get past the disappointment and the anger with each other to once again focus on these longer-term and very large fights.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Saturdays at 1 p.m.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Union Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine, and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine, and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. It's funny that in the middle of the night, as I was actually not doom scrolling, Dan, when you messaged me. I was, there's a lot of people who are doing some really great things on social media. Some folks who are being uplifting and positive. But I was thinking about you because I was thinking about people in my life who show up. And when I did shows at Tata's a little while ago, about a year and a half ago, I think was a year and a half ago. My birthday of 2023, I think, was my last one there. Okay. And you showed up, and the people in my life who don't have to your home is beautiful. You could just hang out at your house and not be out on a weeknight is all I'm saying.
I also don't like people, so I don't like to go.
Hey, and that seems to be a thing. And the reason I was thinking about that was because, and no pressure, Dan. So we are relaunching the shows at Tata's, and there are going to be shows every single Thursday night at Tata's Kitchen and Social. I will not be hosting all of them. I will not be producing all of them. I will have the second Thursdays of the month. We're going to have Adam Burke, who you guys know from co-hosting with Dwayne Kennedy. We're going to have Janice Rodriguez is doing Las Locas there.
Fun.
And Paul Farvar, who you also know from my show, or the segment he used to do on my show on WGN called What's Paul Eating, which was my least favorite thing in the world. I can't stand the sound of people chewing, Dan. I don't know if you have a thing.
It's a weird feel. It's
my
yeah.
God. On a microphone, no less. So, and we are starting a podcast called Musically Challenged, where he'll choose a song that to see if I know it, which I will definitely 90% of the time. If it's not like Joan Jett or Blondie, if it's not a musical rocker, or apparently Elton John and AC/DC, I have my particulars.
Oh, okay.
Just saying. But so we're going to talk. So it's basically I really don't know music.
Okay.
I know you don't know sports. Do you know music?
I do know music.
See, so there you go. So
I taught Chicago Gay Men's Chorus.
Congratulations!
So, yeah, they let me in.
That's a thing,
and they haven't kicked me out yet.
That's
So
a thing.
I mean, yeah,
excellent. When's your first performance?
Memorial Day weekend, and it's 90s themed. I don't know
Yes!
the exact. Yes, I don't know the exact location, but
this.
we're singing some Cher. We're singing some.
If I could turn back time. Sorry, everybody.
That's actually perfect. Don't go chasing waterfalls. We're doing a whole, and it's like 200 people.
I'm super excited about this.
It's a super great group of people. It's kind of like my weekly. It's every Sunday we have rehearsals. It's like my weekly with my people, and which I need, and it's a good thing.
How is everybody doing?
Good. Well,
See, yeah, you
I
lied
almost
right there.
said good. See, I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So yes. So I'm guessing there's a lot of need for hugs.
There is a lot of need for hugs, and I'm not a hugger, but yeah.
I cannot wait for this. So
it's going to be fun.
Weekend.
I will let you know. Yes, absolutely.
Is this it?
It's in Chicago, yeah.
I just found out that there's a comedy show coming up in March called the Lesbian Mafia that we may have to go to.
That sounds fun.
It actually was started in retaliation of a comedian griping on social. So we have these stand-up comedy groups.
Yeah.
And apparently you know what? I probably shouldn't talk too much about it because this comedian has been very aggressive, and there's concern that he might lash out physically.
Oh.
But this stand-up comedy show was created entirely because he lashed out at was angry. What I apparently am always drawn to aspects of existence that are dominated by lesbians.
Oh, okay.
Meaning I played softball, I played flag football, and I'm a stand-up comic. When I started, I did not know that, because nobody knew. Rosie O'Donnell, Ellen DeGeneres, Paul, none of the women who we now know, they weren't out at the time.
Your career would have ended at that point, essentially.
They wouldn't come out, right?
Yeah.
They didn't, and why would they? And yet now they can stand tall and proud.
Yeah.
This avenue is very much a draw for lesbians, and I love that. I used to host an all women's showcase, so at any rate, they're hosting their own showcase, their own show.
Let's do it.
It's a Lesbian Mafia, and we'll find out more about that in the weeks to come. I'm gonna make sure that we feature them on the show. Let's see, Dan, not a hugger. Adam needs you to turn in your gay card.
Sorry, Adam.
I will say this about hugging, folks. There are different reasons why those of us in the world are a little bit hugger adverse. Did you ever see Lady Bird?
No.
See Lady Bird.
Okay. All right.
Because she does this thing that you will love, and I'm a shaker.
Oh,
so
okay.
she before someone hugs her, she'll be.
Yeah.
I do this now because I had to train myself. I had to focus on because strangers at comedy shows. Because of the stories I tell would come up to me and just give me a hug, and I didn't know that people could tell I didn't appreciate it, or at least I was tense.
Yeah.
My friend Steve Cochran said, "You don't like hugging, do you?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Every time someone hugs you, you say, 'Oh, we're hugging,' and
it's a personal space thing.
I
don't know.
Well, and there's different reasons for it. So so I do this. I'll put my arms out. I go, "May I?" Which I know puts pressure on the person, and so, but it's still asking.
Yeah.
But now that I say it, who wants to say no? Right? That's weird too. Yeah. Who wants to say no?
Well, so
I'm a shaker. So I would encourage folks who like to hug to take a moment, at least ask permission. It is you would be surprised at how grateful people are. You put your arms out and you go, "May I?" and they know what you're saying. And if they, and I want to tell folks who don't like to hug, please, I know it's hard, feel comfortable to go, I'd love to shake your hand or whatever it is. Because I'm so tired of being touched.
To each their own. Amen to that.
I would like to be touched, but it's got weird.
All right
then. I just thought about this one thinking, okay, let's see what the, I was just thinking about, this is from a texter. I just thought about this when thinking about the actions taken with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. When there is no more diversity, equity, inclusion, there is no more, what's DEIA? Oh, that means the ADA, the American Disabilities Association. Access.
Okay.
Is also affected. Does that mean any building? Yeah, it does mean that. We are asking, does that mean any building or area that uses federal funds no longer needs to be accessible to individuals with physical disabilities, including ramps, automatic doors, elevators? Yeah, no, that 1,000% means that, folks. Okay, this is one of my stories that Steve is going to go, oh God, not this story. So my son Griffin went to a school in a very let's say, I don't want to say affluent, but like the Lincoln Square area and the surrounding parts are pretty well off. And he went to a school that was heavily, I mean, like the parents moved to that district in order to go to that school. And we were at a meeting one day, and you know, Declan had to go somewhere else. He had to go to an autism my younger son. So we were there because they were gonna add an entire new structure. They had so much money in the community that they were able to build a second structure, an entire, like as big as the original school. Okay. And they wanted to put in an elevator. And this woman said, "Well, we don't have any kids that need an elevator. Why do we have to have one now?" And I about ran across the friggin' room. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "They don't go here because they can't go here because it's not accessible to them."
Limitations.
Yeah. But that would be exactly like, why do we gotta make any sort of accommodations for people?
And I think it's also government employees or government guidance. People aren't going to know what is acceptable or required, or like, do we need a ramp? Yep. Do we need to make sure that stairs are X amount of inches and stuff? Like, do we need to? How do you? Dan, who cares if there's even poison in our foods? We're getting, the CDC has been basically shut down. No more funding for. I mean, there's no communication between agencies. Well, there's talk
we have left the World Health Organization. So why would you care about how high a stair is?
I mean,
if there's listeria, if there's salmonella, if there's an outbreak, Ebola. Apparently, in Ghana, there's been a report of Ebola, and so why? These are the things.
Thank God that we keep funding.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Thank God keep funding what? Do you know he wants to put everything on cryptocurrency? This is what Musk is doing. He wants to put us on a blockchain and whatever. I don't. I'm scared.
Anyway.
Jim, I don't think I'm making you happy tonight. What are we drinking tonight, Jim?
Waiting to get my hands on.
Just not lighter fluid, okay? All right.
How are you, Dan?
I'm good, Jim. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing. The person I'd love to hug is Musk. I'd love to get my hands on Musk.
I don't think it's a hug.
Yeah, you better believe it. Anyway, how many presidents have not finished their term in the United States history? Anything?
How many?
I think two.
Yeah, how many didn't finish their term?
I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4.
McKinley. You go on.
Lincoln, Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
Was it Garfield?
Well, we go beyond that. The guy that died of pneumonia before he took 8 days in office. It's got to be about 10, let's say.
Oh, okay.
But Trump looks like Mr. 11. He looks like he's on his way out. Today I was watching. But that's just some crazy breaking news. I'm like, what's this about? Well, it's Trump with the Japanese prime minister. And it was about his breaking news is like breaking, ridiculous. But Trump looks so bad. I mean, so bad that apparently his makeup people were off this morning or what the deal was. But Joe Biden looked like a lifeguard compared to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm serious. That's how bad he looked. I mean, first of all, you said the other day, Patty, he looks like an albino. I mean, he's starting to look like an albino.
Yeah, they're bleaching his eyebrows, which is weird.
Yeah, his makeup is shot. But remember this. we're Democrats, right? And we believe, in the civics class, believe this and that the House of Representatives made the laws and paid the bills and appropriated whatever funds we said. And it went to the Senate, and they passed it, and then the president would sign it. Now, the president might suggest things, but he certainly was going to do fiat. He wasn't going to demand all these things. And the truth of the matter is, I think that this is going to backfire him. It's got to backfire him eventually, because any student of American history has to realize that they're interjecting some foreign philosophy in the United States government. I mean, Project 2025 isn't an American philosophy. This is a philosophy that is tailor-made apparently for people that don't want to do anything, any altruism for any of the American people. They like to do away with Social Security, for instance. They like to do away with health care. They like to just make it every man for themselves.
Well, no, it's not every man for himself. It's every man depending on the oligarchy.
Mm-hmm. No, I know, but
we will not be for ourselves. There will be no. I mean, we'll come through this. Yeah. I mean, look, every stage of humanity has come through a monarchy, whether through feudal systems, through through slavery. We've come. I mean, and we have people who are enslaved. But I do want to do the one thing before we go to the break, because you know me as a historian, it would bother me to no end, Jim. So it would be 8 presidents, and the youngest who died in office, the youngest, of course, John F. Kennedy, who died at the age of 46. And you know what's surprising is that no president died in office before 1841. You'd think some of these guys that were with all the dysentery, malaria, and lack of good medical care, all those guys, it would be William Henry Harrison, who was the first to die of natural causes, Zachary Taylor, Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, Warren Harding, Franklin Roosevelt, we often forget about because he did do 2 terms, but then he was in a 3rd, and John F. Kennedy.
4th term. It's 4th term.
4th term. That's right.
That's when they introduced term limits, because they were scared that he was.
And that was really a misfortune, because he had the human rights thing. He was demanding health care for the United States.
He should have had 8 terms.
Ideas.
Oh no! It was a shame that he died. I'm glad that they ended term.
Yeah. But they were scared. That's why they instituted the term limits. Yeah.
But that's who the Republicans are running against. That's what they're running against, FDR.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
I didn't know.
That's exactly.
This is the same stupefied state I found myself in, even leading up to the election and since, and what's happening now. We are living in some weird James Bond movie, and I never thought 2 things. I never thought that people hated what Franklin Roosevelt did. I mean, now in retrospect, or Martin Luther King for that matter. I didn't realize there are people come on now. And then I didn't realize people cheered for the villain in James Bond movies. That never freaking occurred to me.
That doesn't surprise me. But remember, Hillsdale College, Prager University, they claim that FDR was a Marxist, and they show every Democratic president is Marxist. All their ideas are Marxist.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It is.
It's just ridiculous. It's health care. Go ahead. I know you guys got to
I got to run.
It's good to hear it, Danny. You guys have a great week.
Thanks.
Nice to hear your voice, Jim.
I'm tipping one back with you tonight later. All right, take care. Thanks, Jim. All right, let's take a break here. We're going to talk to our friends from the Gift Theater. We're going to talk to the artistic director, Jen Glass, and I believe we might have some of the folks that are in their new play coming out soon. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, hanging out in studio with Dan Schaefer, the host of Tuesdays with Josie. Find Tuesdays with Josie wherever you find your podcasts. We'll be right back.
Hey Progressives, it's Richard Chu, host of Chu's Views, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. here on WCPT. I want to let you know that one of our leading progressive voices, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, will be my guest the first Friday of each month at 7:30 a.m.
There are so many people who want to understand how decisions are made, and there are many people who want to know that they are included in those decisions.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, the first Friday of every month on Chu's Views here on WCPT.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
To Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
that moment of silence was just for a little meditation because Dan and I were just sort of, a lot of things going on. Let's do this for a moment. Let's do a palate cleanse, shall we? I wish we had some candles to put in the studio and just sort of meditate a little bit, Dan. Just a little, maybe some incense or something.
Sure.
Just to slow things down a little bit. Get our heart rates going.
Is that allowed with like DEI stuff that they're doing? I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's just try to, for everyone who's out there, maybe you're driving, maybe you're getting the kids home from school. Just want you to take a breath and slow your heart rate down, because you know what I like to do is make sure that we are also, while we talk about the issues in the news, I also want to find outlets for us to experience life in different ways. I often talk about the Jefferson Park Sunday Market. We've been talking about local organizations, and I'm so thrilled to welcome Jen Glass, the artistic director of the Gift Theater right here in Jefferson Park. They have a production opening very soon, and I'm very excited to have. First of all, this is Dan Schaefer. He's the host of
Hello.
Tuesday to Josie. Jen, bring that microphone just a little bit closer. Yeah, the less air between you and the mic.
Okay,
it's so weird because as performer, I know I'm talking like NPR or something. You can hear all the saliva in my mouth. The thing about being performers is we have to project. So
right. So I'm like, I'll be far away, away.
I'm going to talk from here. Jen, where are you from originally?
I'm from the west side of Chicago. I grew up in East Garfield Park.
And where'd you go to high school?
Providence St. Mal.
I'm not familiar with Providence St. Mal.
It is a very, very strict private school, but I got a very excellent education, but there were a lot of rules.
You're not flinching, so that's good. Yeah. You didn't have like a tick when you said it or anything like that. I get that. Mm-hmm. I went to a Lutheran school for 3 years, and Dan went to a Catholic school. So
for all my
so we get
grade
that.
School, high school,
we
college.
We get being grateful for some of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and also we are who we are because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, absolutely. I mean, Providence was 6 blocks away from. Like I grew up basically right behind the Garfield Park Conservatory.
Nice.
And so in the high school is in the park, like across the street. And it was really great. Like they drilled into us that at that time when I was in school, I think for the past 40 years, they had 100% college acceptance rate and like 98% college graduation rate. So it was rigorous. Yeah. You knew what you had to do. But then once I got to college, it honestly was a breeze because I was like, I've been in the trenches.
I got this. This is easy. What?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't think people appreciate that. I went to Lane Tech, so it's a big school, and you have to be a self-starter. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, you're done. Mm-hmm. And so college was a little bit of a slog for me the first semester. I didn't understand the dynamics. So it sounds like you had that guidance, that sort of...
Yes, for sure we did.
The guardrails, as it were. Yes. And were you always involved in theatrical expression, or
I was. So I and it's funny, like, not to. I'm accidentally going to plug another theater, but
sure.
I read A Raisin in the Sun when I was 14, and they're doing that at Court, and I love Court, and I love so many people in that cast. And I read A Raisin in the Sun when I was 14 in like my English class in high school, and I was just like, well, this is what I'm doing with the rest of my life, because it just I connected so much to the to the story. Yeah, the matriarch character reminded me of my grandmother, and then the mother reminded me of my mother, and I saw myself in like the daughter, and I was just like, I want to tell stories like this forever. And then, which was tricky being at private school, because I think at the time they didn't have art, so I was like, I am at this like very prestigious school, but I'm going to be an actor.
Oh my goodness! I love the way you said that. I'm going to do this for the rest. I mean, because I've had people say that before, and I think that some people never get there. Mm-hmm. They never have that moment. They do what they're supposed to do. They support their families. Some of us find it later in life, mm-hmm. and I think that people need to be open for that. Yeah. And because at 14, how wonderful! I mean, and so where did you go to college?
I went to North Central College in Naperville. Okay. And then I did a basically grad school program they're no longer around anymore, but Act One's conservatory had this, it was grad school. Like, we were there for 2 years, 40 hours a week. And then I did school at Steppenwolf, which is how I got connected to The Gift and Brittany and Mike and now, a million years later, being co-artistic director because it's Brittany.
Oh, I apologize, Brittany.
I could never do it by myself.
I apologize, Brittany. Brittany, hi, Brittany. We are very grateful for you, and co-artistic director of the Gift Theater, Jen Glass.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Patty.
I appreciate that. I do feel like I'm doing NPR.
Yeah, you are. You get the vibe right now.
It's the cleanse after all the stuff you were talking about.
Exactly.
It's very soothing, which is what we need, right?
I've been watching a lot of Liam Neeson movies for various reasons.
Okay.
And I'm like, I really need to slow down and find my like gravitas.
Well, and it's like the soothing aspect of it, but also like the arts. And
yes, exactly.
So how are, if I may ask?
Yes, you are co-hosting. Please ask.
Okay. How are you finding the work that you are doing is helping individuals in the community just kind of we were talking about this. It's only been 2.5 weeks after a tumultuous.
Is it only 2.5 years? I don't.
It feels like a year. Yeah. But how are you finding the work that you all are doing is kind of just helping the community?
Yeah. I think, the fact that our doors are open and we're producing because, I'm a little bit of a broken record because I feel like I've had to say this a lot, but since the pandemic, like, we have just watched theaters that we love, like small storefront theaters like ourselves and bigger regional theaters just shut down left and right. And so, honestly, the fact that we are able to continue to make art, continue to collaborate with, like, the brilliant artists that we have in Cygnus and in our ensemble and just in the Chicago community, I think that's how we're surviving. And like, that's how I ask people. And I was talking to one of our designers, and I don't really say like, "Oh, how are you?" Because who knows?
Right? But yes, I can't answer it anymore.
No, I just say,
it's so much pressure.
What's your? I said something like, "So how are you?" How are you? I forgot. I can't remember what I said. Something like, "How are you like working through today?" Or something.
I just said that today, and I was like, how are you doing? I was like, I feel like I'm asking you at a funeral, like, how are you? And I was like, that's a stupid question.
No, the worst thing at a funeral is when you say, "Good to see you," and I always regret it immediately. It's so good to see you. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. You know what we should start doing? We should ask this: are you hydrated? Are you hydrating?
There you go.
My answer would be no.
Yes,
so I'm
and then
it would remind
you. It would remind you: are you hydrating?
Yes, I like that. I'm going to do that tonight.
Are you hydrating?
Practice self-care.
Because this is too much. No. So at any rate, and that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the wonderful career of co-artistic director of the Gift Theater, Jen Glass. For folks who aren't familiar with the Gift Theater, which I've had the pleasure of supporting and joining with them and celebrating the great work that they do, tell us a little bit about coming to this theater now after you talked about the Steppenwolf Theater Conservatory and your work at North Central. So how did you come to meet everybody at the Gift Theater?
So I did the school at Steppenwolf in 2010, and that is Steppenwolf's, it was their training program. It, again, was, I'm just always in these rigorous programs. Like, it was basically a 2-year graduate program that they stuffed into 10 weeks. But one of my teachers was Michael Patrick Thornton.
Hello.
And so that's the first time I met Mike, and then also Sheldon Patinkin. And
come on.
Yeah, it was, and I was a little ignorant and didn't realize who either of them they were right away. And then, like, a couple days later, I was like, what am I doing? I can't. Oh, this is too much. But I met Mike and Sheldon and Brittany there. And I think in our class alone in 2010, there are 8 ensemble members. Like, he just, like, scooped us all up. A good chunk of, and because Mike was in School of Steppenwolf, and it's just a really beautiful connection between those training programs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the first time in 2010 that I met Mike. And then the first time I worked, like, I was a fan right away, but the first time I worked at Gift, I understudied A Life Extraordinary, and I was understudying Sid Blakewell, who was the lead, and she literally never left the stage, and I had guaranteed performances, and I was also understudying Darcy Nalepa, and who's an ensemble member, and it just immediately being in that room, Gift is just such a place where you can bring your full self in the room. Yeah. And at that point in my career, I remember just still trying to figure out, like, where I fit in theater and all these things. And I had understudied a lot up until that point. And being in the room with John Golick, who was directing, like, I was used to kind of just being in, like, a fly on the wall, and I'll just observe. And that's not you can't do that when you're in a room full of gifters.
You can't do it. Be like, what?
Yes,
Bring it.
Yeah. So that's where 2010 is where it started with School of Steppenwolf, and then 2016 is when I first started working, and then was asked to join the ensemble in 2018. And then in 2022, we
during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did I meet you the night? No, you guys, the Filament, because you're doing this production at the Filament Theater, and they were also doing some events during because these are two wonderful little theater. Well, the Gift Theater on Milwaukee Avenue is not your home anymore.
No.
They're building a new location. The Gift Theater it's basically like a less than 40 seat theater. I think it was like 36 seats.
I've been to a couple of shows. And it's amazing.
Yeah, and we're still trying to keep that intimacy. Like, that's a big part of us, too.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a little bit, it's basically this Cygnus is twice our size, but it's still small, and you'll still feel like you're on stage with us.
And the Filament's a great. I've done a production. Well, I did a New Year's Eve comedy show.
Oh, nice.
So I love that it's in the community. It's right by Six Corners. For folks who don't know where the Filament Theater is, it is on Milwaukee Avenue, just north of the Cicero and Pulaski.
We're just, for all of our Jefferson Park friends, we are just 6 blocks away. Even though we're not on Milwaukee and Lawrence right now, we're just a short little walk down on Milwaukee.
Excellent. I was telling Jen before we opened the mics, when I was at WGN, I would host different productions around the city and do a wrap party for them on Monday nights. So we have like Gale Street Inn, the best food, and he's a big big
jambalaya
sponsor. Oh my God! Right? I mean, how is their gumbo? What?
I don't know.
I'm just saying.
I take food very seriously, and the ribs and the jambalaya gumbo.
Try the London broil and their blackened salmon. I mean, all of it's so good. So he would bring food in for the performers because, like the Gift Theater isn't a big, and they would have their own parties, but I wanted them to sit down and tell us what it was like to do the production, and the things that would come from the performers and the directors, little moments that would happen, like they were doing Othello when you guys did Othello, like apparently so small, like one day audience members' water bottle just rolled across the stage, and things that they never talked about because it just happened and you just move on. Yeah. But they all had that memory and would like talk about things that happened backstage, and so it's one of my favorite things is because those are the moments we don't see. Yeah. And sometimes you'll see it fictionally told, but like having you guys tell the story is wonderful. So tell us about the genesis of doing the production of Cygnus.
Yeah. So this is the world premiere. We're very excited.
Yes.
By Susan Sooney Stanton. And she, I guess I can say this now, she'll be here. So she's going to be able to see it, which is very exciting.
Okay.
That is like, we're thrilled. We didn't know if it was going to happen, and she's so lovely, so gracious. But Brittany first read it. I think she first read, because as we're going through seasons and trying to pick seasons, we just read a ton of plays. And Brittany read Solstice Party, which is another play of hers, and the cast was it was a little bit too big for what we could do right now. And then she found Cygnus and just fell in love, like Brittany. And she says this in her director's note in the program, but she just has a very deep connection to this dynamic, to this mother-daughter dynamic. And she told me it was okay to share, but she, like a few days before her second child was born, Ivor, who is beautiful and amazing. Brittany has 2 kids, Romy and Ivor. But her mom passed away a couple days after Ivor was born. And so just Cygnus deals with trying to grapple with different types of loss and how we use storytelling to get ourselves through that. And so it's such, there's magic in it, there's myth in it, there's so much, there's comedy, we always say like, no, we do, because people are like, they do very heavy shows with The Gift, and we do, but we have we throw in a little comedy, so it's very dark humor. But
I always find with like heavy topics, humor kind of helps bring you
and this cast is like fantastic. I'm obsessed. Angela Morris plays Sydney, who the story is focused on. Sydney believes that she has had some type of encounter with an angel or mythical being as she's dealing and processing through some pieces of grief, and Angela's hand is just dynamic as she's telling the story. And just the chemistry between her and Jeff Rodriguez, who's in the show, is just, it's like when you all see it, it's palpable. It's so good.
Amazing.
I can't wait.
I'm trying to find. I was looking down because when you mentioned reading the script, right? Because the production I saw, one of them that I saw was by Britt Marling, who had done OA. If you've ever seen Murder at the End of the World, there was a production they did of one of her plays. The work that you guys do, it's even though it's such a small space, right? Because I think a lot of people think of going to the theater as going to the Goodman. You mentioned the Steppenwolf, right? This big
Chicago theater, like
right.
You got the,
and look, there's a skill to making something feel intimate in a room of 1,000 people, but being intimate with 8 people performing to 36 people or 100 people is it's transformative. And you mentioned storytelling. That's what we need right now. Is that connection to remember our humanity and to have this story. I think is in this moment in time is remarkable. It's magic.
And just to touch on what you were saying about like being in those small rooms, like of course every actor, every theater, we want to tell the truth, but especially because we have this, our stages and our performances are so close to the audience, like you have to tell the truth. And
right.
That's
demand it
right now too. We need truth.
That's my one question is, so after each show, what are you wanting to feel? Like as you're walking off?
That's a good question.
I think just for people to feel that connection, to feel something that reminds them of what Sydney's going through,
learn something new.
That they learn something. And I'm really big on discovery. Like I want them, even if they don't realize it in the moment, I want after they leave, like when they're washing dishes, to be like, oh, so that's what was going on with that thing.
Can I tell you, I think, we all process grief and trauma in different ways. And so we all kind of think at like a certain time, like at a certain point in our lives, we're fully formed. Even though we tell people, no, I'm always learning. I'm always looking for new experiences. And then, but to your point, you'll have that sort of, and still be open to that is the magic that I think theater brings. I love that.
So,
I love that.
Which is why we need the arts.
Yes.
Especially with our current administration. We need to protect the arts.
Our current situation.
The funding for the arts.
We need to protect the arts.
I don't know. I'm trying to make sure that we protect the work that the Gift Theater does from what's happening politically and in the environment. I would recommend that if you're curious about Michael Patrick Thornton, who is one of the creators of the Gift, he's the founder, co-founder, right? Which remember the co.
We like it's all teamwork.
And so if you're curious, so Michael Patrick Thornton is a mainstay in Chicago theater. And here's the thing about Chicago, what they love, when it comes to casting, you're fine, to casting for television and movies, is that we're workhorses, right? That's and so you'll see Michael Patrick Thornton in all kind of Madam Secretary, the Practice,
Private Practice,
which was the sequel, the spinoff from Grey's Anatomy. So you'll recognize his work and also Shakespeare. He did Richard III, I think here, which hello, with and the incredible technology that was incorporated for that. When people are. I talked to a young actress a few weeks ago, and she's like, I just want to go to New York. She's really young. And I was like, I can help you. I can point you in directions. How do you manage that when there's an expectation of there's a difference between wanting to share a story and be honest and wanting something else?
Because I'm also like an arts educator, teaching artist, and am the co-director or the director of our education program, and I spend a lot of time with college students and high school students and get that question a lot. And I think the best thing is to I always encourage if you want to try LA, you want to try New York, all these things, but give Chicago a chance first. You're not and there's nothing against it's New York and LA. It's amazing, but there's something so unique and so special about there. We had this big meeting back in the summer with the League of Chicago Theaters of different artistic directors, and someone brought up how Chicago is the only theater community that you call a community. Like, you don't call Seattle's...
I was going to say that. Like, Chicago just has communities.
Yeah, we just call it the Chicago theater community. And in other places, it might, like, there's great theater in Seattle or Portland or other places, but we are so community focused.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I try to tell my students, that if you should at least get your training here and get your experiences here, and then people, like, when you work regionally, they can spot Chicago out.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
I just got so this is such a stupid side story. Do you audition for any of the film work in Chicago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Chicago PD, Fire, and all those things. So I've done a couple of episodes of Fire, and PD has been sending me auditions, and it was so funny because I stopped worrying about, like, because for a long time I wanted the whole thing. Right? I'm a stand-up comic, and so I'm older, I'm a little heavier, and I finally, I mean, it's just one line, but I'm like, I look like crap, Jen. I mean, my hair's a mess. I just and sometimes that's the thing, is like not being so needy for it.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's not being authentic.
Exactly, and that, I mean, it's a whole. I booked Chicago PD last. In fact, like almost a year ago today, I think, and it was just like a few lines,
right?
But it was a thing where I remember the audition. I think I had all these, like, something else to do. Or no, I had COVID. That's what it was. It was a year ago. And I was like,
self-taping?
Yeah.
That minor pandemic that just happened.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'll just do this. And then they're like, okay, so you're booked for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. And there definitely have been times where, like, I was just like, I'm going to put everything into this. And then get nothing.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I was friggin' late for it. Like, I didn't, you ever have, like, the time on the the submission?
Yeah.
And I was in LA. So I misread the submission. And so I was like, screw it. I missed it. I just told my agent. And they were like, they just called. They want to know where you're. I'm like, I've been sending them auditions for years. And now they want to know where this one is. I have my hair is a mess. And then, of course, I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
What the frickin' frack?
I know.
And so what I want to tell folks about the Gift Theater is that you are supporting, and not just supporting, but experiencing something you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
So how do folks find out about Cygnus?
So they can go to our website, The Gift Theater, thegifttheater.org. We're all over socials, on Instagram and Facebook. We just started previews. Today is Friday. We just started previews yesterday.
Yep.
We have previews the rest of the weekend, and also next weekend previews Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we have a press opening next Sunday.
Dan, I will now. I believe I have a +1, so why don't you just come with me?
I will go wherever you want me to go.
We're going to the media.
Sounds good to me. Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
Yes, thank you so much, Jen. This is the first of many interviews with you in the Gift Theater. I know we've had some folks from the Filament. It's at the Filament Theater. You will not regret. Not regret. I hate saying, but I'm into that. Go out.
Yes.
Go to live theater.
Yes. Support live theater.
Support local theaters.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And our incredible performers, our the production companies, everybody from the set designers, the prop masters, everybody. This is really making community, and you're a part of it. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I will see you on the 16th.
Okay.
And beyond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I'll make sure you have my number.
Okay.
I know you have a publicist. She's probably listening like, no, you don't get to have my number. No, I mean, like, just, I want to
be friends.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, we can be friends.
Come on. Be friends. All right. Let's take a break here, and we'll continue our conversation. We're going to talk to our friends from FairVote Illinois in just a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. In studio with Dan Schaefer, the host of Tuesdays with Josie, Jen Glass, the co-artistic director of the Gift Theater. Hi, Brittany. We're not forgetting about you. Thank you so much for directing this incredible production. More in a moment.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Oh, you know what? The question is not how you're doing. The question is, are you hydrating? That will now be my question going forward. We are in studio with guest co-host. What do you need, Dan Schaefer? I feel like you're looking for something. Dan Schaefer, the co-host
I need to turn my headphones up.
Oh, you got it? Oh, yeah.
I got it.
Does it sound better? I can yell at you. How's it going, Dan?
Okay, you don't need to yell at me. It's fine.
I've decided we're no longer going to say, how are you doing? We're going to say, are you hydrating? Are you?
I am, yes.
Is it with water?
Yeah. I like seltzer water because I like carbonation.
Oh, I'm going to get you a can of Nope during one of the breaks.
You talked about that yesterday.
I will get you a can of that for sure. I want to say hello to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Of course, tuning in here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. And if you can't hear our show sometimes, if we're a little fuzzy right now, or you're wondering why it's not so clear, you can tune in on the TuneIn app or on. We're not on YouTube. We're not. Okay, so we're on heartlandsignal.com and just click on on my face. I'm a big fat face right there in the bottom left corner or right corner. So before we get to our guests, we're going to talk to our friends from FairVote Illinois. I want to get to some more texts and phone calls because first, Roosevelt hung up. Roosevelt. I just said I was.
During the break, she said she was going to pick him up.
So let's get to some more texts. Hi, Patty. We're wallowing in the chaos, understandably. I'm thinking about how I can resist. I don't have the incredible bandwidth you do. I work as a volunteer at a nonprofit where I recently found out the executive director is a big Trumper, anti-vax and anti-diversity, equity, inclusion. But I love the organization. It is a dilemma of whether to quit as a form of resistance. Well, that's a big question because first, if you feel safe enough that you can't be in that environment, then that's a privilege that you can execute. A lot of us are tied to our jobs. Yeah. That's why we're so vulnerable to the oligarchy. Is they want to own everything so that we are at their mercy. If you're not at someone's mercy and you can't perform in that environment, and you have other options, then do what feels right. I know that when I worked someplace where it was toxic, I left too late, and to the point where they got rid of me in a very humiliating and painful way. What would you say, Dan?
I'm going to disagree with you on your own show, so I apologize. No, please. I'm going to say be the force and
try to be a positive influence on a MAGA.
Initiate change. I worked at 2 major companies where we had to initiate change, and it's slow. It is slow, but it is possible. But
they're a volunteer.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yes, I'm wrong too. Sorry, they're a volunteer.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, but so in general,
how would someone run a nonprofit? Okay, yeah.
In general, if you're in a position where you can possibly influence change safely and productively, I would say stick it out and do it. But also, if your own personal...
If you can handle trying to be a positive influence,
do it, yeah. All right. If you can, do it. It takes a village.
Another listener says, a while ago I called in about not getting the Social Security, which I was entitled to due to the offset rule from Reagan. Biden got rid of that, and I will be getting a few hundred more a month, hopefully. Too late for my mom, but not for me. I hope this helps. Another listener has been texting in about movie Matawan. Please watch the movie Matawan. Oh, you've seen this one, my friend? Yes?
It's a classic.
I know. How have I not seen Matawan?
I have not seen it either.
It's a John Sayles movie?
Yeah.
I love John Sayles. It's a microcosm of everything going on now throughout human history. That's a lot happening in my life, and I don't know if I can handle that. Do I want to? Is it a good time to watch Matawan?
It's great. It's a great workers' rights film.
Oh, all right. So, yeah, that's going to be the thing. We were talking to our friends from FairVote Illinois. That's James Johnson joining us, as well as Rebecca William on the line. Rebecca is in the car. I'm so sorry that you're not. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi. I am so sorry. Patty, for my edification, did you guys used to have a previous studio location?
There are 2 when you look it up on Google Maps.
Are they really?
Yeah. Oh. One is on the south side. One is on the northwest
side. Did you also have the south side one on your?
No, I think that's where Rebecca headed to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my darling husband put in the other one, and I didn't realize, so I'm so sorry I can't be there.
He accidentally sent you to the south side? Okay. Is he also saying, hey, pick up some good food while you're there? Because there's not, is there a restaurant he likes on the south side? He's like, well, I'm sorry you didn't make it to the station, but while you're there, maybe pick up some, what does he eat on the side?
You know, we're going to a lovely restaurant closer to you tonight, so we were going to do that after I was in studio with you. We're still going to do that, but
where are you going?
We're going to Mignoli. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's a Taiwanese spot.
Ooh, nice. All right.
Yeah, so we're definitely looking forward to that.
As long as you are, safe where you are, and I don't want you to be like worried about driving and getting anywhere. It's fine to do it.
Oh yeah, he's driving, so I can chat. Yeah.
Oh, so you're not even driving. So I thought you were like meeting him in between.
Yes.
All right.
Oh no. If I was driving, I would have come to your studio because I. Yes.
This is why men shouldn't have directions.
Oh my God, I love that. All right, well, let's start with so James Johnson's in studio with us from FairVote Illinois. Tell us how you got involved with FairVote Illinois.
I've only been involved with FairVote for a little over a year. I've been spearheading electoral reform initiatives in Skokie, which is north of the city, for the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. And a little over a year ago, well, I'd wanted for years to launch kind of a ranked choice voting initiative, but I wasn't really sure that we could do a binding one. And so once I started to make a move in Skokie, FairVote reached out to me and said that they would be happy to craft us the language for a binding referendum. This is a service they offer to really any municipality or any kind of local group that wants to push ranked choice voting in their town. So they helped craft the language for what we've done in Skokie, and now it's on the ballot in Skokie.
Can I? Okay, so ranked choice voting is something that I really, really want, but it's also something that is very confusing to many people. Can really you just do like a quick rundown of what it is?
Sure. Actually, Rebecca, you're the pro here. Do you wanna chime in?
Yeah. So ranked choice voting is a simple reform that's really about giving the voters more voice and more choice. And essentially what you're doing is for any race that ranked choice voting would apply to, you get to rank as many candidates as you want in your order of preference. So maybe you only like one candidate, but a lot of times you might like 2 or 3 or 4 of the candidates, depending on how many are running. So you rank them, and then if any candidate gets a majority, it's just a normal race. That candidate wins. But if no one gets a majority, then you eliminate the candidate in last place. You look at the voters' second choices, and then you would go through that process until you have a majority winner. So it's a way of making it so having more choice in a race is not something that will make it so a voter has to vote strategically, and it's also not going to put a community at risk of having someone win who only had the support of a minority of the voters.
And the thing is, it's not just that you might, it's kind of like you have a favorite, but you also have a candidate that you really hate. And here's the thing, but without ranked choice voting, if you vote for who you love, you might get who you hate because of the only 2 choices you have. But there might be people who are less hateful, like less horrible.
The lesser of 2 evils, which is what we shouldn't be.
It's not even lesser of 2 evils. So I ran in a 3-way race, right? Yeah. And so I was considered to be the person in the middle, right? So one was considered to be farther left, one was considered to be farther right. Even though I was more aligned farther left, it was just the impression I gave people. I was a more palatable candidate to a lot of folks, but instead they voted for the farther left and the farther right, even though both might have been more interested in a candidate who would have aligned with their their view of the world. Yeah.
And that's the thing is in races right now, when you have multiple candidates who are kind of more similarly aligned, some could be encouraged to actually drop out or just not run because you can get some vote splitting, and it is a concern in a lot of races right now. So again, that just depresses choice. It makes it so we don't get new blood in races. But with ranked choice voting, you don't have to worry so much about that vote splitting component, which is really great.
And so in my race, going back to that, because I know it so intimately, obviously. The reason that she seemed farther left was because she used negative mailers, over 100,000 pieces of paper, to call me a disgusting extremist who couldn't be trusted in the cases of rape and incest, even though I'm a rape survivor that couldn't protect women and girls. So, and that, by the way, is a Democrat. And so that is in a primary. Especially in a primary, right? And even in a general. I love the example of the mayoral races in Chicago because we don't do primaries. We just do a general. Now you have 12, 18 candidates. And the reason we have a runoff is because, nobody's going to get past 50. And so, but these are all candidates who maybe got 11%, maybe got 18%. No, it was nobody's favorite. And that's why ranked choice voting, I think, also is important. Would you say, James?
Absolutely. On the voters' end, you never have to do strategic voting. You can always vote your conscience. So ranked choice voting just completely changes the dynamics on both ends, on the voter end and also on the candidate end. How candidates operate and then how voters operate when they actually go cast their ballots.
But so many people are resistant to this. What do you say to folks who are like, it doesn't make sense to me, I don't believe in it, it sounds too complicated. Like
it's new, it's why...
It sounds sketchy. Yeah. Like there's so many, right? Aren't these the things you hear?
Totally. And... there have been a lot of studies done of places that have implemented ranked choice voting, and they all find that a lot of voters do find it confusing until they do it. And as soon as they do it, they're like, oh, that was so easy. It's literally just ranking things. This is my favorite. This is my second favorite. Yeah. This is my third favorite. That's it. And places that have implemented it have found that once people do it, they not only get it, but they like it, and they would like to continue doing it. So it's just kind of getting over that hurdle. Yeah.
Rebecca, go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, and I would also just say, in terms of what we've seen so far in Illinois, as long as we do a good job of explaining it to voters, explaining the way it works, explaining the vast array of benefits to it, we haven't actually seen a lot of resistance from individuals. Where we can get resistance sometimes from certain elected officials or people that hold a lot of power within the system, but voters overall seem to really want to change.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And Patty, you brought up the terrible toxic campaigning that you had to deal with as a candidate.
She's fine.
I've dealt with it too. I mean, it's the worst.
Yeah.
One of the many benefits of ranked choice voting is it disincentivizes negative campaigning. It doesn't solve the problem, but it certainly discourages it. If I'm running against multiple candidates, I want their voters to pick me second.
Yeah.
So candidates are way less likely to send out those toxic mailers and go kind of full force negative.
Insane. It was one of someday we'll talk more about it.
I've experienced it in Skokie when we did our first round of electoral reform initiatives. The establishment folks sent out mailers saying that we were extremists, that we were trying to meddle in our elections. When I was an independent candidate, because I work at a Catholic school, mailers went out saying that I was anti-woman, anti-LGBTQ, anti-choice.
Isn't that
So that was going to be my question.
Yeah.
So in Skokie, which is a suburb of Chicago, so everyone thinks like Chicago, LA, New York, but when you hit the suburbs, my question was going to be what type of response you got when you tried to implement some of these things.
It was really difficult in Skokie, and I think a lot of people know this, but lots of municipalities in Cook County and Chicago.
On January 9th,
That was weird.
Okay. Lots of municipalities throughout Cook County and Chicagoland have really outdated and inequitable electoral systems, and there are lots of kind of entrenched local parties that like it that way.
Yeah. I don't know what you mean.
It doesn't exist.
In Skokie, we had truly one of the most outdated and inequitable electoral systems in Illinois. In the past 20 years, we've averaged 1.1 candidates per seat in our local elections, and we've been averaging 9% voter turnout. At one point, our voter turnout dropped to 4% in one election.
Come on.
So virtually no choice on the ballot means just no voter engagement whatsoever. So in 2022, we launched a voter-initiated campaign, completely overhaul our system. We passed. We got 3 referendums on the ballot at the same time for 3 different electoral reforms, kind of led by nonpartisan elections. And they all passed, even though we were outspent 4-1 in negative campaign ads calling us extremists, because people like electoral reform. When voters get an opportunity to meaningfully reform their local elections, they like it.
Your vote actually counts?
Totally.
Like, what is that? Like, that's weird, right?
You mean the powerful feel threatened?
The phrase we used for our campaign was make every vote matter.
Yeah.
Let your votes have truly, a meaningful impact.
And Rebecca, that's the point. Is like we talk about wanting our voices to be heard, having our voices count. Go ahead.
And that's what's so exciting about the possibility of bringing ranked choice voting to Skokie now as well is, with this prior system they were working with, ranked choice voting wouldn't have really made any difference because it's not as if the voters had choice anyway. But I'm sure James will talk more about this, but we're seeing, so much engagement in this election that's coming up in April. Most of the races have a good amount of choice in them, and so I just think ranked choice voting is an obvious next step to make sure they've got a really great new system there.
Yeah, it really would make a difference, I think, in everyone's, in everyone's lives, in the sense that we feel so powerless, and also in our communities, and truly holding electeds accountable. To your point about, that there aren't, there isn't the path for new candidates to jump in, and this is why ranked choice voting and FairVote Illinois is nonpartisan, because there are issues, shall we say, across the board. Totally. Right. Well, once you have power, you want to hold on to it. And look, I wish that there were a way to maintain the kind of agenda. We talk about. I hate saying agenda because it sounds crazy, but maintaining a sense of decorum, and maybe I think that might be a path forward too. Is a sense of actually working together. It would force not just people within their own party, but people on other sides of the aisle when they come to these elections that way, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what's happening in Skokie and the work that FairVote's doing in Skokie and Oak Park is a good example of engaging in direct democracy via voter initiatives. We don't have to wait for our elected officials to make these reforms for us. We have the power in Illinois to, through old-fashioned signature gathering, petitioning, get binding referendums on ballots to update our local electoral system step by step in really meaningful ways. And they can pass regardless of whether there's institutional support for them or not. And that's real people power.
Rebecca, for that, that path through Oak Park to get this through, what kind of support did you have from existing electeds to make sure that this happened?
So in terms of, you're saying in Oak Park or just
Oak Park?
In the
Oak Park. I'm curious. I know that Mayor Biss, I think, was helpful for... So in Oak Park, who did you have as an ally in this issue?
Yeah, so in Oak Park, we had a couple local groups which were really great and helpful with it. But on the elected official side, there were 3 village board members who were pretty, supportive the entire time. Susan Buchanan, Brian Straw, and Robbie Potticott, who's actually running for village board president in this upcoming election. So we'll see what happens there. But all of them were, just saw the benefit to Oak Park, and that was a great win that we had in November too. 79% of voters said yes to getting it for their elections, and so again, we're just seeing a really positive response. It's great. And speaking to what James was saying about, we don't have to wait on politicians or, state governments or anything to make these changes. Over 50 municipalities across the states are using this right now. And this is the way it's happened in almost every place. In almost everywhere that's using it, it's because voters have voted for it. And often, through a petition first. So it's pretty cool that we get to do that here too.
And James, you mentioned that you were working on issues like this. You were trying to find a way forward. How does somebody get this done in their communities? How do they reach out and try to get this on their ballots?
Sure. Some electoral forms are kind of outlined already in our state election code and actually are pretty simple. Mm-hmm. There's nothing about ranked choice voting in our state election code, and this is where a group like FairVote is really invaluable. FairVote has basically offered that any group statewide that would like to organize and gather signatures and get a ranked choice voting referendum on their local ballot, FairVote their attorneys will literally help you write the petition language and prepare the petition and kind of do the upfront work for you. And that's what they helped me do in Skokie. So I kind of organized our local volunteers and signature gatherers, and we got all the signatures we needed, but it wouldn't have been possible without the help of FairVote. And what they did for us in Skokie, they could do for any group anywhere in the state.
Now, Rebecca, I didn't get a chance to ask you. Now, where are you from? You said you live out in the suburbs?
Yeah, so I'm in Willowbrook.
Okay. Oh.
So I am, Willowbrook is like just into DuPage County. It's just west of Chicago. Yeah.
I always say, because I actually got to perform at the Willowbrook, it burned down, that beautiful ballroom.
You're talking about that was my wedding venue, and it burned down the day before my wedding.
Wait a minute, what?
I've told you about this.
James?
That's why I looked at you the way that
that's Dan Schaefer.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, this is Dan. Yeah, no, my husband and I were supposed to be married at the Willowbrook Ballroom, and we were driving to it to drop off all of our stuff, and it was literally on fire. It burned down the day before our wedding. So we had to relocate 350 people to a different place in Darien, which is really nice, and it was all great. But that's not the topic of this conversation.
It was historic. It was a great place.
It was the coolest place.
It was amazing.
Resurrection Mary, Archer Avenue, all the things.
Are you familiar, James, with Resurrection Mary? No?
James will talk. And
we'll talk about during the break.
And again, not the topic of the conversation.
No, it is, though. Because I asked Resurrection Mary. No. See, okay. Rebecca, do you know this story?
So I have heard so much about this place because I only moved out to Willowbrook a couple of years ago now, and there's kind of nothing out there. It's a perfectly nice place, but it's a pretty dreary suburb, right? But I have heard that was the thing.
Yeah. My grandparents had their first date there.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you James, I will tell you I think I was 9 years old. So it's, when you're a kid, did you guys do ghost stories or like Ouija boards and that kind of stuff, right? So the big story in my neighborhood, around here actually, was this guy's driving along the road and he sees a girl walking on the side of the road. She's wearing a white dress. A white dress. Mm-hmm. And he pulls over and offers to give her a ride. And she's kind of shivering. And she says that, I can't remember why she's walking.
The snow came early this year. That's what she says.
We have different stories already.
Oh.
So he offers to give her his jacket. So, because she's cold. And so he gives her a ride. And she says, you can pull over here, but it's like at these gates of a cemetery. And she's like, no, just drop me off. Just drop me off. And he's like, but there's nothing here. And so she demands to get out. And she gets out of the car, and he drives along, and he realizes later that she still has his jacket. So he finds a house, and he figures, well, there's a house near the cemetery, maybe that's her home. And he goes and rings the bell, and he tells the story about this woman who was wearing this white dress, and she was, has his jacket, and she's like, there's no one lives here that fits as a description. And then he sees over the woman's shoulder a portrait with the woman's picture. He's like, no, that's the woman I picked up. And she's like, she's been dead for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't believe it.
I know, right? Goosebumps.
And she's like, and in our story, and this is 9 years old. I'm 9 years old, James, by the way. And so she's like, no, and they live near the cemetery. So she walks him to the headstone, and his jacket is on the headstone, James. And that's my Willowbrook dance. What's your version?
I have a different story. So
tell me.
So it's.
I feel like we should dim the lights.
I mean, really.
Right.
So cab drivers are driving down Archer Avenue, right?
Yes.
And they see a woman in a white dress, right? They pick them up and then pick her up. And her first thing that she says is the snow came early this year. And then as soon as they pass by the gates, she goes, oh, here it is. And then they disappear. And then the cab driver goes into Chet's Melody Lounge, which is right across the street, saying that somebody's stiffed them on a tab. And they're like, oh, you got Mary, right? And he's like, what? And then really good Bloody Marys over there, not going to lie.
Perfect.
But then there's
James
also...
is like, how do we go from ranked choice voting to this?
We're kind of diverse.
Welcome to my show.
I'm from North Carolina. I'm not familiar with the Chicagoland ghost stories.
Oh, so you're familiar with Bigfoot, though. We can talk about Bigfoot. Anyway, No, so that's my, But
so what happens when the cab driver, they say you had Mary? That's it? They
just laugh at
There's
him.
no jacket. There's no headstone. No. My story's better.
I mean...
I didn't tell it very well, but still.
It's your show. Your story is always better.
Rebecca, have you heard versions of that, though? Is that what you've heard?
I had not.
Oh.
So I mean, I had not heard the stories.
Oh.
So I love.
You've been gypped.
I love getting the stories.
I will bring you to
been.
all of the scary places in Illinois, and it is fun. All the cemeteries, resurrection, everything. Yep. It's a cool area.
So James just mentioned he's from North Carolina. Where are you from, Rebecca?
I grew up in several places, but I grew up mostly in Southern California and Wyoming.
Good Lord. Okay. So you first, why Chicago?
So I moved to Chicago from Texas.
Oh, God.
So I lived in Texas for a bit. Yeah. And I just honestly, I'd never been to Chicago. I'd never even visited or anything. But when I lived in Texas, I happened to meet a bunch of Chicago transplants who just spoke very favorably of the city. And also when I wanted a bigger city, I wanted a place that had a bit more culture and everything, because where I was in Texas wasn't so much providing that. And I also realized when I was in Texas that I missed winter. I like having all the seasons, and so I didn't like being somewhere where it was hot all the time. And now I definitely have winter back.
And why Chicago, James?
My spouse is from the northern suburbs of Chicago, and so I moved all over the place for the first 25 years of my life, so I was just really happy to settle down pretty much anywhere. And I ended up in Skokie, and here I am.
The glamorous Skokie.
Skokie is nice.
Skokie's great.
They have a great park district system. They've got...
And the waterway system that they got there, I'm forgetting the word.
Lagoons.
Thank you. Yes,
Skokie's incredible.
It's great, and everybody goes. It's awesome.
Skokie's one of the most multicultural and interfaith communities in Illinois. It has a really incredible history. Yeah, it's great.
I love that. I love her. By the way, poor Rebecca in Willowbrook. I mean, she came to Chicago, not for nothing, but it's a little bit farther away than Skokie.
Is nice.
It's like she said it was a dreary suburb. Mm-hmm. Our friends in Willowbrook. The opinions of Rebecca and me are not.
Do not reflect.
The opinions of the station do not send us any hate.
Yeah, no shade on Willowbrook. I do like living there. It's just not the most exciting place.
Fair. So how can folks get involved with FairVote Illinois so that we can make sure that folks are informed, engaged, and there's a lot of work to do because people are feeling a little bit helpless, and I think FairVote is a way to help them feel empowered.
Yeah, so they can always go to FairVoteIllinois.org. I think it works best if you spell out Illinois, but either way, FairVoteIllinois.org. And specifically, if they'd like to learn a bit more about the Skokie initiative, you could go to rcdforskokie.org. And that'll tell you all about what's happening in Skokie and how you can help there.
And James, what do you want folks to know? Because you were on a path to create change. So I think people feel helpless. What do you want them to know about getting involved and getting activated?
I can only speak for myself, but I think I, like so many people, feel pretty hopeless about what's happening at the national stage. I mean, there's kind of a sense of, I don't feel like I can change the White House. I can't change the Supreme Court. But I feel like I have immense power at the local level. And I think taking that energy to the local level can be incredibly empowering and energizing. And we need it. So much happens at the local level that we're not seeing, that we're not hearing about, because we're so consumed by the national chaos.
Do you think that there is an avenue to get this done statewide for Illinois?
I'll let Rebecca answer that, but absolutely.
What are your thoughts, Rebecca?
Yeah. So in Illinois, if we're to get it statewide, that needs to go through the General Assembly. It's not something where people could vote on it statewide. But what we have heard, we do have some allies in the General Assembly, people who, recognize the merit of this. But what we have heard from them is they want to see it used at the local level, which is fair. They don't want to, all of a sudden change the way we do elections statewide without seeing if it works well and the voters really like it. And so that's kind of why our work is focused the way it is right now, in addition to the fact that we do have that control at the local level. So we're hoping that, if we can get it going in enough cities and show that it is something that voters really do favor, then we can apply that pressure to ultimately get it for all of our elections.
Well, folks, start reaching out to your electeds, in particular when it comes to getting this done locally. Reach out to your alderman, because I know that this was something that was carried in City Hall for a little bit. I think the energy there has sort of dissolved a little bit. But there are other communities like Evanston, like Oak Park, where I think there's an openness to this.
Totally.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I should say real quick, we're definitely working on trying to bring it to Chicago, too.
Okay.
I mean, it just makes so much sense for the city. We've started really talking to alders. So, yeah, especially if people want to get involved in Chicago, or even if they just, want to reach out to their alder, just make a quick phone call or an email or something saying that they would support ranked choice voting here, then that's great.
I think that we talked about this with some folks from FairVote Illinois at one of the farmers markets that I volunteer at, about coming in and talking to neighborhood groups. How do we arrange that? Just reach out and say, hey, can you come talk to our neighborhood organization and inform us on this?
Yeah, so for that specifically, if someone wants a presentation or if you have an idea for a presentation, you can, on the FairVoteIllinois.org site, there's a tab where it will say request a presentation. So that's actually a pretty easy thing to do, and we could get you set up for one.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. Enjoy your dinner. Tell your husband. We understand. We appreciate that. Enjoy your evening and have a good weekend. We look forward to seeing you in studio when your schedule allows. We'll have you back, I promise.
Thank you so much, Patti.
And I don't know if your husband's a beer drinker, but we had a 4-pack for you. But maybe I'll give them all to James. I'm just saying.
That's the worst part about not making it there.
From Monaco Brewing Company, we had a 4-pack. So I will keep that in my locker for you, and I'm going to send James home with a 4-pack. For all the great work that you guys do, this really is important. Thank you so much. Be well. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Patti.
Thank you. Be safe. Let's take a break here. James, you're welcome to hang out with us. We're going to take some calls from listeners. Dan Schaefer, the host of Tuesdays with Josie, in studio with us. Again, the website, James, is FairVote.
FairVote Illinois.
Excellent. .org.
.org.
All right, excellent. All right, let's take a break here, and we'll come back and continue our conversation with our listeners who are on hold. We've got Resurrection Mary conversation coming up.
Dave and Steve.
And Dave is going to correct something.
He's got a third version of Resurrection. So that'll be interesting.
There's all kinds of stories. All right, more in a moment on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
You're listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
This is Patti Vasquez. We appreciate all our fans of Driving It Home, and your support of show sponsor Monaco Brewing Company ensures that our important conversations continue right here on WCPT each weekday from 5 to 7 p.m. You can now find the Resistance IPA, Labor Lager, or the Resistance Pilsner beer at several Illinois locations, including Arminetti Wine and Spirits in Woodstock, Pineapple and Company in North Riverside, Lions Beverage Depot in Arlington Heights, and MP's Liquor, Wine and Beer in North Aurora. Aurora. For a full list of Chicagoland locations, please visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. As always, please vote and drink responsibly. Hey, everybody. We have in studio with us our friend James from FairVote Illinois hanging out with us. This is what we do. We do some current events. We do some silly stories. We just hang out and we support each other. That's kind of the biggest part of the show. Dan Schaefer, the host of Tuesdays with Josie, in studio with us. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And coming up at 7 o'clock, Dan's going to join me on Whiskey and a Cookie. I know Adam Selzer will be on, and that's on the Patti V show page, the Patti Vasquez show page on Facebook. Now, Roosevelt, I'm going to take first because Roosevelt was on hold for a while earlier, and I'm glad you called back. Roosevelt, what's on your mind, my friend?
On my mind is you.
Oh, dear. Okay. Am I all right? Am I doing all right? How am I doing?
No. You and the word laughter, laughing, So here's the subject. From time to time, I'm going to give you young guys, young folks, some music so you could tune in. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't heard it.
You've done this for me before. I know other listeners have as well, and I just kind of go. So let's let James know this. I have an appalling lack of musical knowledge. Like, it makes people insane. Do you feel like when you hear a song, are you pretty good about who's singing?
I'm okay.
You're okay. I am not even. That's not even, like, I'm 5%. Yeah, that's about it. Maybe. At any rate, Roosevelt, just wanted to catch James up on that. What's in your mind?
Okay, so you brought this up, really. You gave me an idea. From time to time on Friday, since it's close to the end of the weekend, I'm going to give you guys some songs.
Okay.
It's your duty to tune in on the weekend, and maybe you heard it, like I said. So I'm going to bring up, first of all, Lara Trump. I'm going to bring a little politics. What do you think about her singing, especially? She did a rendition of, what's his name? The guy that died. Now I forgot his name. Won't Go Back from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've heard that she's got.
We're having a little bit of trouble hearing. Is it muffled for you guys? Yeah, you're a little bit muffled. Yeah, Roosevelt, do you have a way to make that a little bit clearer?
How's that?
Okay, a little bit better. Go ahead.
Okay. So you know that she sings and she's a jack of all trades. She's got a new show. So tell me, is Fox News well represented in politics today? Heck yes, because Secretary of Defense is another guy that came from Fox News.
Hexit,
so, yeah, so I'm going to link it to singing. Just wanted to bring that up about Lara Trump. But now to the subject of what I called, and that is the band, the Guess Who. Don't know if you guys ever heard of them, but you guys are younger than me. So one of the most underrated bands. I grew up with these guys when I first went to high school, 1969, 1970. So the band is the Guess Who from Canada. Randy Bachman was the guitarist. He did Taking Care of Business, Bachman Turner Overdrive. Burton Cummings was the lead singer.
Okay.
So here's the song. The song is Laughing. Okay, it's just one of the many hits that they had in their career. And they were very young. They were like 20, 22, around that age.
Roosevelt, I hate to say this. You know how I don't know music? Also, talking about music and listening, you're losing me. I don't know how to help. Like all the things that you're talking about are not in my universe, and so I need you to tell me where you want to go with this.
Well, what I want to go with this is basically bands. I want to get to the point where you guys are gonna. Because these days, music is, nobody plays their instrument, so I kind of miss that, and I grew up with that. When I came from Mexico, I didn't know any English, and I still don't.
Okay. I feel like you do.
Okay, so
you use it extensively here.
So I would tune into the radio, listen to music.
Right.
Terry Hammer from XRT, that lady is fantastic. And I remember the days when
she's amazing. I've had the pleasure of meeting her, so yes, I agree.
Okay.
Okay. Can you give me the assignment? So the assignment is to listen to the Guess Who this weekend?
Yeah, the Guess Who.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the reason why I bring up Laughing, the song Laughing, that's the title of the song, is because of you. You're in the laughing field. Comedy, laughing, goes together. So, but they had a lot of hits, Patty. Lots of hits.
Okay.
And I grew up with these guys, and we all thought that these guys were very talented and underrated because maybe it's because they were from Canada, but.
Well, I will definitely check out the Guess Who, and I appreciate it, Roosevelt. I've got to run because there's other callers on the line. Okay.
No, I understand.
Thank you. Thank you for calling back. I appreciate it. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roosevelt. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week. Excellent. Let's go to our friend. Let's see who's on the line. Let's see, Dave from Hoffman Estates. Hey, Dave. What's on your mind, my friend?
Hey, Patty, Dan, and
hey, Dave.
Hey. Yeah, when y'all called that Parnas Leo, his name is Lev, L-E-V.
Lev,
Parnas.
not Leo. Sorry, Lev. That's right, Lev Parnas.
Yeah, and as for the liberal and progressive, it wasn't Roosevelt. It was his vice president, Henry Wallace. And he was going to be being progressive and all of that stuff.
As opposed to Roosevelt?
Uh-huh. Oh. And Roosevelt's wife, actually, Eleanor, she pushed him a lot. But he was going to be in line to be president because when Roosevelt was sickly already at the end.
Well,
and
yes, so that was the situation where we've had our first woman president because she took over when he was incapacitated.
That too, yeah.
He was a progressive conservative and then later a radical liberal. So, I mean, he had a progression. So I would say later in his presidency, he became much more liberal.
I would agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
thank you, Francis Perkins. James is like, what is happening? What conversation am I in?
Sorry you stuck around.
But the Democrats had liked Wallace, but he had made a lot of enemies in the Democratic Party because he was open about he did not care for he denounced the racial segregation in the South and all of that stuff. And the party leaders had convinced Roosevelt to sign a document expressing support for either Associate Justice Douglas or Harry Truman. So there we go again.
Well, here's what I would say I would say Roosevelt and Lincoln had this in common, where they knew they needed to have public opinion, right? And so, and what we see is bending to conservative. It's different now, and we had different, elements to how messaging got out there. But Lincoln knew that you had to convince the public, and so getting there was a different mechanism. Yeah. And I think Roosevelt also, wanted to make sure he had the support of more Americans, and that often meant having conversations and having conservative sort of leaning presenting images, right? So,
but I believe, with that Wallace, he was pushing like that single payer and all this kind of stuff back then.
Right. And by the way, so I don't know, James, if you're familiar, so Roosevelt actually, and Francis Perkins, who helped create most of the safety net supports that we have now, so Security and Medicaid, all those things, they wanted, as Roosevelt said, as Dave is saying, a single payer. They wanted to do health care too. Right. And they didn't think that, they didn't think they'd get it done. He wanted to stack the court.
And can I say, people that are scared of government taking over their health insurance are...
This is going really well. It's all great.
They're loving Medicare, right? Yeah. When they get it, they love it.
Hey,
right? They love Social Security. They love all of those things.
Our electeds love government-run
These are
healthcare.
Social programs that are working, and you know what? Let them work. That's it. Yeah. And I'm going to, it's your show, I'm going to step back.
You're good. You're good.
That was a case of the Democrats, again, with the circular firing squad. And, Patty, I'll close out with this one because I'm sure there's others here. Lately, the Republicans have been coming with that catchphrase of it's common sense. Well, the Democratic leaders should start using the stuff that my old man and them used to use way back when, and just say for the simple reason.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great weekend.
Guys.
Thank you. Let's take a quick break, and we have another caller who wants to add a story to Resurrection Mary, because James does not know about our folklore here in the Chicagoland area. Our woman in white stories. Do you not like ghost stories? You didn't grow up on any?
I didn't. I wasn't prepared to talk about Chicagoland ghost stories.
No, just even any. Like, you didn't do any ghost stories as a kid? Nothing around a campfire?
I was raised by Southern Baptists. They didn't tell me the ghost stories.
Well, there's
They just told me the Holy Ghost stories.
It's way scarier.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was Mormon for 10 years. So
wow.
I get it. More after this on WCPT at 20 Heartland Signal. We're hanging out with our friend James from FairVote Illinois. Go to fairvote.org for more information. And Dan Schaefer, the host of Tuesdays with Josie, available wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Snakes, zombies, sharks, heights, speaking in public. The list of fears is endless. But while you're clutching your blanket in the dark, wondering if that sound in the hall was actually a footstep, the real danger is in your hand when you're behind the wheel. And while you might think a great white shark is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Joining us as we continue to drive it home. Hello to our friends listening on KTNF, AM 950, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota. And we are broadcasting here in Chicago on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Joining me in studio is Dan Schaefer, who is the host of Politini, co-host of Politini. Is that ever coming back?
I think I've assumed the entire role of Politini.
He is the host of the Politini, also the host of the podcast Tuesdays with Josie. We also want to thank our friend James, who's in studio with us, James Johnson, who is a Skokie trustee. I'm sorry, I was forgetting to mention that you're a trustee on the Skokie board. That's a lot coming from North Carolina to
and also
involved.
Good for you.
Yes,
that's good.
Yeah, I'm the first independent ever elected in Skokie. It was kind of a long shot, but here I am.
Yes,
I made it.
Congratulations and thank you for doing that. How long have you been in that position?
This is it's a 4-year term, so I'm at the end of my term now, and I'm running for clerk. So this is the end for me.
Okay, so how do we get involved with your clerk race, and when's that election?
April 1st. It's a huge election in Skokie.
Burying the lead, and I'm sorry I didn't help you with this. Come back again and talk about it. But yes, tell us. Yes, but tell us more about this race.
Yeah, because of electoral reform in Skokie, we have the most contested election we've had since the 50s. We haven't had a contested race for mayor or clerk in over 20 years. So we've got 3 candidates for mayor. We've got 3 candidates for clerk. We've got a contested race for all of our trustee spots. It's great. So yeah, I'm running for clerk. My website's jamesforskokie.com.
All right,
and
come
we're
back.
knocking doors.
Yes, I'll go to door knocking with you.
Absolutely.
That's my wheelhouse.
That I shouldn't have said.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We were knocking doors.
So this ranked choice voting petition was part of my clerk campaign because I figured if I'm going to go out and do all this work to run for myself, I might as well get some referendums on the ballot too.
I love that. All right. And again, the website?
jamesforskokie.com.
Excellent. Now, Steve is calling in with another ghost story. Do you have another version of Resurrection Mary, Steve?
Yes, the version that I heard is that it's a cab driver. He's driving down Archer Avenue. He drives past Resurrection Cemetery.
Oh.
A woman in an old-fashioned white evening gown waves him down, gets him back, gives him an address. He drives to that address, pulls up to the house, turns around to get the fare, and she's gone. Gets out of the cab, knocks on the door. An elderly woman opens the door and looks at him. She's very sad, and he says, I'm sorry to bother you, but I just picked up a young woman. He said, yeah. She says, yeah, that's my daughter. He says, no, she disappeared. She says, yeah, she was at a dance at the Willowbrook Ballroom.
Right. Yeah.
On the way home, her and her boyfriend crashed. She was killed. She's buried in Resurrection Cemetery, but she always tries to come home.
That is very accurate.
But no jacket. I need a jacket.
He doesn't believe it, so he goes back to the cemetery, to the gates where he picked her up, and the gates are slightly pulled apart, just wide enough for a woman to sneak through.
Yes, this is part of the lore, by the way, James. Is that the gates are a little bit bad. Thank you, Steve, for that version. And that sounds a little bit better than mine, actually. It's close.
Can I ask James a quick question?
Yes, quick. Is that right?
You mentioned that you were raised Southern Baptist. I always wanted to check on something that I heard. Is it true that Southern Baptists oppose premarital sex because it leads to dancing?
Oh, yeah, it's a direct line from and inverse. Dancing leads to premarital sex. Smoking also is directly involved.
You got to get foot loose. Cut loose. Thank you so much, Steve. Have a good night, James. Go to FairVote.org. Dan, Tuesdays with Josie, Whiskey and Cookie in a moment. Thank you, Lady B. Bye, everyone. Gotta go.